Welcome to Fish and Rice Stories from Japan. I'm Toby.
I'm Andre.
And today we have a new guest on the show, Noel. Thank you for coming.
No problems at all. Thank you for inviting me.
Noel, you're a street photographer here in Japan and you've been here for quite a while.
Yep.
Can you tell us more about yourself?
Okay, so I'm originally from the UK, from a place called Norwich, in the east of the UK. I was there for 23 years, studied biology.
Okay.
And I had no interest in coming to Japan, but I was already teaching when I was in the UK. I really wanted to live in a different country. I was thinking maybe South America or somewhere like that.
Try something new from the routine.
Just always from about 16 or 17 years of age, I didn't want to live in the UK. Nothing wrong with the UK, but I just felt I wanted to go somewhere else. And I got an opportunity to come to Japan and arrived in Japan in 2004. Lived in Wakayama for 5 years.
Wakayama City or the prefecture?
In Kishigawa. Kishigawa is about 30 minutes from Wakayama City. It's famous for Tama-chan, the cats.
The cats.
Who's a station master. So I lived there for 5 years and then moved to Osaka. Didn't touch a camera really when I was in Wakayama. I remember my friend Sean, American guy, he was in Wakayama too. He bought, this is back in 2005, he bought a Canon DSLR. Rebel.
One of the first ones, the big ones.
I thought it was amazing. I was like, wow, he's got a proper camera with interchangeable lenses. And he went off traveling the world and shot pictures of India. And I remember thinking, wow, it would be so great to be able to do photography. But I didn't, had no idea or no kind of sense of photography. But I remember seeing his photographs and thinking, wow, someday, I don't know, if I could do photography, that would be great. So yeah, that's kind of how I arrived in Japan, Wakayama, and then into Osaka, after 5 years there.
Throughout all this time you were working as a teacher?
Yep, I was, I've been teaching since I was age of 18. Teaching is my number one passion in life, more than photography, more than anything. And I was teaching science in the UK at a school for kids who are having problems at school, so they were delinquents or
I see, like
kids with special kind of
attention
emotional
needs,
issues. Yeah, well, just not regular kids, but this,
That's quite a challenge, isn't it?
I guess so. I mean, they just need support, right? I mean, they can do the learning. Usually these kids are quite smart, so you just provide the environments where they get the attention and the support, and then they can, achieve what they need to achieve.
How was it then when you moved to Japan? What were your first impressions? I guess you jumped straight into teaching at school. Was it very different? Did you have to adapt to life here?
Not really. I mean, I don't know. I just kind of just did it. I mean, I'm not the kind of person who really worries or thinks too much about things. I'll do something and then try and figure it out later or after I've done something. So I was in rural Wakayama and it was cool. People were really nice. People were really friendly. My first impression was I arrived at my school when I was teaching. My first day, August, I was suited up, sweating like a pig. It was really,
You're
really
very hot and humid in summer in
really
Japan.
hot. And I walked to the school and there was this old guy and he was gardening outside the school. And he said, "Oh, hello, good afternoon, welcome to such and such school." I was like, wow, the janitor, the caretaker here speaks English.
In English.
This is amazing. So anyway, I got into the school and sat in the staff room and went into the headmaster's office, and that guy who was outside was now suited and booted, and he was the head teacher. And it was this idea of the caretaker, who I thought was the caretaker, was actually the headmaster. That was my kind of first
Quite
impression.
a surprise.
Well, for me, this is kind of Japan.
A little
It's
cameo
kind of cool, right?
outside the school.
So yeah.
And so you mentioned something interesting, that it wasn't really a challenge, and the way you approach things is you kind of just start it and then you learn it while you're doing it, you just approach and adapt. Is this kind of how you jumped into photography as well?
Yeah, very much so. I was, at the time, maybe maybe 10 years ago, I was living in Hyogo. I was living in Akashi,
Okay.
right by the beach. That was like one of my long-term goals.
Close to the bridge going to...
The other side, so Hayashizaki Matsue Kaigan is that one station on the Sangyo line, right? And I lived there literally, 2 minutes, 1 minute from the beach. And
convenient in summer when it's hot and humid.
Convenient, exactly, right? And I started fishing. So I was super into fishing. I was fishing 8 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
I was working from lunchtime, so I was fishing in the morning. So I got really into fishing. And anyone who's done fishing knows you've got quite a bit of spare time on your hands. And that's when I got my first little Canon digital power shot for about 10,000 euro on Amazon. And I started taking photos while I was waiting to catch fish. And, I'd done some photography when I'd had a disposable camera once on a Scout.
Who didn't?
Who didn't, right? I was a Boy Scout back in the UK. I must have been about 9 or 10 years old. We went on a trip to London. And I remember having this disposable, we each had a disposable camera. And I was trying to take a picture of London Bridge. And I knew I was rubbish. I can't take a picture of London Bridge. And so I didn't have any, as I said, I came from a science background at university. And, I grew up playing sports. So I had no interest in art at all. I actually didn't really see the point in much, in doing an art subject at that time. And then fast forward, I'm fishing and I got this camera again. And something's different. I can kind of feel something. I can kind of see the light's a bit different. And I start getting into it. And I'm thinking, okay, and I used that camera for about two or 3 years. And I've still got all the photos I took from that. I used to think they were brilliant. I've still got them in a little album. And
well, nowadays they might have even more value, right, to you personally. The photos themselves, technically speaking, might not be worth looking at, but just the story behind the photo might kind of still be.
It was an interesting time in my life, and I remember being really proud of those photos, and now looking back at them, they're actually not that good. And so I was fishing, and and then I because of my job changed, I moved back to Osaka. I sold him a fishing gear, and then I was on Facebook one day and someone had a mirrorless interchangeable lens camera.
Like your friend from the US who went to travel the world.
The cool one.
Right, and I was like, wow, this is kind of...
I could be one of the cool kids too.
Right, so I thought, okay, I'm going to sell my fishing gear. And I sold my fishing gear and I bought this little, EOS M at the time, right? And that was my first proper camera. And that was it. It kind of took off from there. I was taking photos.
How did the first photos of the fishermen, I guess, you took turn out?
Yeah, I liked them. I mean, there's lots of backlit shots of silhouettes of fishermen in the background and herons. It's quite a lot of nature shots. I started off doing mostly nature, like birds and sunsets and kind of typical stuff you see at a beach, and then there'd be some, I catch a fish and take a photo,
souvenir photo.
Right, and I started posting on Instagram, and someone commented, a friend or someone says, "No, you never take photos of people."
Oh.
Which I didn't. I took a few silhouettes, but I didn't take photos of people, and that was like a switch. And since then, I've never done anything but take photos of people.
So this was a switch that led you to move to more street photography?
Yeah, because it's something I didn't feel I could do.
Why is that? Why not?
Because I hadn't done it, I guess. There wasn't anything. It was just like, I guess some people may have this actually, like kind of a block. It's only up here. There's nothing that I couldn't do. I'm really interested in this kind of stuff that I can't do. And had someone not said, had given me a comment or, criticism, it wouldn't, that was like someone had thrown down a gauntlet. I was like, okay.
You may not have realized that you were not even taking those photos.
I didn't, right? Yeah. I didn't realize I was just taking photos of whatever, right?
And now today you take mostly what we could called street photography shots. But before we kind of talk more about that, a lot of people, they have maybe different definitions of street photography. Some might say it's more like travel photography. Some people would say it's about taking black and white photos in the city. Some people will say it's about capturing the moment. What is it to you personally?
Street photography, photography for me is about light. Yeah, it's photography, right? It's about capturing light. And I think when I first started doing photography, I was taking pictures of things, and the light was kind of secondary. And then I started doing some film photography, and I realized that if you don't take care of the lights, then you
don't see anything.
You don't have very good photographs, right? They're flat and nothing pops, and so number one, so let's split that into two. Photography is an observation and recording of light, and then street photography is then being in a, I would say, urban situation, or being in a situation where people live.
Okay, I think that's
I think that's maybe because you can be in the countryside walking down.
Exactly.
And I think it can still be
considered street
photography. Yeah, or you can be at a beach and it can still be street photography because it's populated.
So for you, it involves light. Does it also include the need to have people inside the photos, or would you say that a photo taken in a place where people live, but that is maybe just a good lighting situation with buildings and reflections, but without people, is not in that category?
As part of a series, if you're going to include it in a series, I think you could. If you're just going to have that picture on its own, I think it moves into
architectural,
urban architecture and urban landscapes.
So we've got the definition down for you: a situation where you take photos where people live, and where the most important thing is how the light hits the scene in a way.
Yep. So primarily it's light. So walking around the street, finding good light, and then whatever happens to appear in that light.
Okay.
It can be a cat, it can be a dog, it can be an old man, it can be a grandma. Can be whatever.
So look for the light and then wait.
Not necessarily wait. Look for the light. I mean, wait as in look for the lights. A lot of the time, I'll follow. So I'll walk I'll walk around the streets and I'll just follow the light. So I'm actually kind of walking and shooting. Occasionally, I'll wait. I'm not the kind of person who'll sit in a corner and wait.
Well, you've been fishing for 8 hours a day.
It's very interesting. It's very different, actually. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very rare that I'd wait any more than 5 minutes. I'm quite impatient like that.
Prefer just walking around, feeling the environment.
Yes, yeah. I'm not.
If you're waiting, what are you waiting for? Like what exactly you're waiting for?
Yeah, it's dangerous. I think waiting is a bit, because then it becomes a little bit cliche, right? I think
like you're staging the shot more than taking the shot.
Right? And then for me, that's kind of moving it's still street photography.
But more on artistic side, perhaps.
No, I don't think it's about anything artistic. I think it's just about preference. I like things that I don't know. I like being in situations where I don't know really what's going to happen next. For me, that's very comfortable and very interesting. Maybe part of the reason I moved to Japan. It's kind of I like the kind of unpredictable, and I like things to emerge and just to be able to capture them. Whereas I think, particularly with portrait photography and waiting on the block, trying to create a shot moves in. It's probably more artistic. You're right, actually. Yeah, it's probably more artistic. You're probably creating something out of yourself, opposed to just journalistic waiting and capturing the moment. So yeah, you're probably right. It's probably more artistic.
So with your approach that is more in the spontaneous chasing of light and capturing the moment, how would you say that the street photography scene here in Japan is different than perhaps overseas? I don't know if you've had the opportunity to do street photography overseas, but I'm sure that if you kind of engage a little bit in the community, you mentioned posting on Instagram, you will see and notice how perhaps photographers in other cities or other environments, other countries will have different approaches. How is it here in Japan?
With regards to a scene, I don't really know, because I shoot by myself. I've done some workshops and stuff. For me, street photography is just street photography. There's no, because it's my own world. I don't really concern myself with what other people do. The only other place I've shot in is Spain. My parents live in Spain.
Beautiful country.
beautiful light as well. Just the way those whitewashed buildings bounce the light off. Yeah, it's beautiful. The light is really...
A lot of sun too.
It's quite, I'm going to say it's easy to do photography in Spain, street photography, but it is, yeah, the light is nice. It's very, every corner you walk around, it's like, oh, yeah.
So how are the streets here in Japan then for you?
How are the streets here in Japan?
What makes them maybe unique or different?
I guess compared to Spain is the, what's the word I'm looking for? How high they are. Is the,
Tall buildings?
Yeah, tall building. I guess Japan's more three-dimensional, right? Spain's a bit more, I don't know.
A bit flatter.
It's a bit flatter, but then, my parents live in the mountains. But you know what I mean? I think architecturally, I think there's, particularly in Osaka, there's more, I think, you can shoot. I think you mentioned the post on Facebook recently about shooting up in the sky, right? Right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you can look up more, and there's more to capture. There's probably more to capture, more variety, more angles.
More angles. I think that's interesting.
More filters. When I mean filters, I mean natural filters. So that can be a tree, it can be a building, it can be a skylight, it can be anything. So it's just different architecture, but essentially it's just the same. I mean, for me, there's no difference. It's just different. It's like a different level on a computer game or something, a different world or something. But the controls are the same.
Living here in Osaka, I assume you take most of your shots around the area. Do you have any preferred areas to go to take photos?
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Nakatsu for 7 years until last year. So I had a route where I'd walk into Umeda and then go around Nakazaki-cho and loop back
I live
around.
close to there, so
there, right?
I know the area.
Juso, place I really like is Tsuruhashi, the Korean market. It's a good place to shoot because you get the light coming through the
Shotengai,
through the
kind of
Shotengai,
blinds.
and then you get the smoke and you get the kind of, especially first thing in the morning, the light's really nice.
First thing in the morning, it's very early in summer here in Japan. You gotta get up early.
In the winter's nice. I went there for last time I was there was New Year's Eve, I think.
Oh,
and it was really
very
busy.
nice.
And because it's so busy, people don't
notice.
Well, you just walk around and you just take shots. But it's
Has that been a challenge here in Japan to take photos of people? There's this image perhaps from abroad. Japanese people may be perceived as a bit more shy or very private. I think that's a word that we could use, and it could be perceived as very rude to kind of intrude into their personal sphere to take photos of these candid moments. How do you approach this here in Japan?
Well, that's the key point. It's about not intruding into that personal sphere. And
because we were just talking off camera about this famous photographer. We'll have to put the name. I forgot in New York who used to Bruce Gilden.
That's right. Yeah.
Bruce Gilden. There
That's
we go.
We got it.
Yes, good timing. Who used to take photographies with a flash and walking up to people to kind of catch a very unique expression on their face. And you mentioned, well, the keys to catch a candid moment would be to kind of take a step back and leave their space to them.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily be careful with step back because sometimes you need to step in, not to be noticed, right? Depending on what lens you're using, right? For me, I mean, I have no really opinion on other people's photography. Like if they want to do that style, that's cool too. That's what their thing is. That's their thing, right? For me, street photography is, for me, if somebody notices what I'm doing, it then starts to move into portraiture.
Interesting.
Right? Because...
What if, for example, I remember I was walking down that connection between the Grand Front area and the Sky Building where they're building the big park.
Yep.
And so they have this kind of corridor. And I was walking down there a few weeks ago and I noticed a photographer who was walking and lifted his camera in my direction. I don't know if he was taking a photo of me, but of course my eyes then gravitated towards the lens and I looked into it because I was like, and so would you say that's a portrait possibly, or would you say he captured a moment of me noticing him and then just shot?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to ask him. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, give definitions. For me, I mean, for me, I think once you start to interact with the person, and you have a conversation, maybe it doesn't need to be a verbal conversation. It can be a kind of a
Visual contact.
a kind of a visual agreement, right? Sometimes it happens, right? And I think that kind of moves into portraiture. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't really matter how the definition of it, right? It's a photograph, right? But for me, the most satisfying, probably, is, you know, you could question the morality of it, I guess, is when you're not noticed. Is when what's happening between the grandmother and her granddaughter, or the couple. I don't become part of that, and the less there is of me in the picture, me as in the photographer's influence, or the photographer, you know, the more pure the scene is of what is actually reflected in real life, there is, the better for me.
Do you have one of those, like a very memorable scene or moment from your street photography journey here in Japan? Something you witnessed that you were like, oh, in a way, I didn't engage with the scene, but I was part of the moment by capturing it. And
yeah, I mean, just off the top of my head, there's in the Katsu, I was walking around the corner, and it was summertime, and the grandma was blowing bubbles, and the granddaughter was trying to catch the bubbles. I mean, that's just a typical kind of. I was unnoticed. I didn't disturb them. I got a nice photo. The light was great. So for me, it's like a gift. It's a gift for me. I'm taking the photo. I'm taking the present. I'm not really creating anything. I'm not. You know, I'm just. It's like, wow. I walk around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
I've been careful, keeping in the lights, and I've got a present. And it's my responsibility. Interesting time, I guess, it is to be able to have execution of my camera and to be able to capture that moment. And then I feel the need to share it, and people can enjoy, not for anything about me, not really about those people, but just to enjoy that kind of chunk, that kind of beautiful part of life, I guess, or that kind of frame of life.
Are there any legal restrictions here in Japan for taking photos of strangers in public spaces and posting them online?
I mean, I'm going to be honest, yes. I don't think there's any legality in taking photos. If I post it online, then I think it becomes a problem. And I do post online, so I mean, I'm putting myself on YouTube here, but
wasn't there something? I'm not sure if this is accurate, but I do recall reading somewhere that if the photo is taken in a public space and the person in the photo is not the subject of the photo, then there's no issue. But if it's like you mentioned before, the definition, portrait street photography, if it's a clear portrait of that specific person, it could be considered a problem if the other person sees the photos and does not want it. But I mean, I don't think anyone would. Everyone's first reaction might be to just ask to take the photo down simply.
Yeah, I mean, if I had ever got in a situation and had an extremely clever lawyer, and they could argue that I was just taking photos of the light, and they just happened to be in the light, you know. No, I mean, if anyone ever has any problem, sometimes someone will see you take a photo, or even afterwards they may notice and they say, oh no.
Has it happened that someone asked you to delete a photo from the camera after you've taken it?
Not in my
not in Japan.
No. But I delete it anyway, you know.
So if not from kind of the human challenge of taking photos of people in light in the streets of Japan, what kind of challenges do you feel like you faced in your street photography journey here?
What kind of challenges? Yeah, I guess we talked about it a little bit earlier before the interview, is particularly recently, I think there's a lot of benefit. I think there's a lot of benefit from following the same path. I mean, I used to when I was about 7 years ago, when I was really into photography, what I call prime, really focused on becoming a good photographer. I was shooting before work. I was eating lunch in 15 minutes and then using the other 45 minutes of my lunch break to take photos.
That's a lot of dedication.
Yeah, but it wasn't really. I mean, it sounds like some kind of dedication. That's just what I wanted to do.
Like innate desire to.
Yeah, just like a kind of.
I want to take photos.
Kind of like an addiction to take these photos, right? I just wanted to finish my lunch and go out and take photos. And when you do that, I think that's important. I think it's the same with anything, playing the piano or going to the gym or doing any kind of sports. It's dedication and time, right? And I think sometimes when you're really into something, you can kind of ride the wave of that. And I had a good, I think, 5 or 6 years of kind of riding that wave. And it did, you know, yes. No, it didn't feel like work, you know.
Passion.
Yeah, passion, I guess. For me, just kind of killing, kind of passion, I guess. And being practical. I mean, you know, I live 10 minutes from a convenience store. So if I was going to the convenience store, that 10-minute trip would maybe become an hour trip because I'd take a camera with me, intentionally.
And you just stop and walk it up and down
right?
5 times.
Yeah, and I think it's great to go around the world and do this, or maybe go to a different prefecture. But I gained a lot of benefit from just shooting pretty much the same streets all the time. When I've taught photography courses or like workshops before, one exercise I do is for people to shoot a pet bottle in their room.
Okay.
Like for a week, just a pet bottle, to really appreciate light. You know, because that's, for me, it's just about light.
Well, because if you're in the same location all the time, you get to know at what time the sun hits with which angle and what kind of shadow you can get, and then you can position yourself to be in the right place at the right time, not by accident, but by just knowledge of the situation you're stepping into.
Exactly right.
But you mentioned that you also travel to other prefectures.
Yeah, I mean, but not with any photography, like just for holiday, you know. And I'd have a camera with me.
Okay, so you your photography kind of journey is really focused on the local area where you live.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so.
So would you still say that there's like a slight difference between shooting in other cities in Japan, or would you say it's basically just the same? Is there a sort of new approach perhaps when you enter an area where you haven't been before, where you look at everything with a complete opposite approach of not knowing exactly when the light hits, but just the discovery of you have no idea what's coming after that street? Whereas on your daily trip, you just know every day I'm gonna come across this particular angle, and there might be someone standing there. But in a new city, it's different.
Yeah, I think the variety is in Japan. Yeah, I mean going to the countryside, but I really like Shimane and Tottori, that area, and I've been up to Akita, and that change in scenery. You know, it would be maybe, you know, moving to country, urban country kind of street photography with people walking down, you know, old ladies sitting on a corner chatting, and it's a little bit slower. Yeah, I mean, it's for me, I mean, the biggest example of that would probably be in Spain. Was when I went to Spain, and I remember, you know, my dad dropped me off in the town. The main town where they live. It's about a 20-minute drive. I just went to do photography, and I was walking around the streets with just no intention, just get some street photography. And suddenly there was a massive festival being prepared. And it's exactly
surprise.
Surprise, and it was great.
A gift.
It's a gift, right? Yeah. Does it happen in Japan so much? Maybe not so much in Japan. You know, I think Japan's maybe a little bit more predictable. Depending on there's a lot of seasonal events in Japan. So, I don't really think about it too much. I'll just go somewhere, and then, you know, something's interesting.
So if we focus back on Osaka, and you mentioned one of the keys, like what makes Japan a little bit unique is a lot of buildings go up, and the urban landscape creates a lot of interesting light conditions for you to take photos.
Yeah.
I've been in Osaka now for 4.5 years, and well, there's been new high-rises in many areas, but also new interesting constructions. And we talked about the Umeda a while back, that they are building this new park, and there's new buildings being there. Has this changing urban landscape kind of affected your approach? Has it made you want to change your route that you use for photography to kind of explore new areas within the city with new kind of...
Yeah, one thing I'm really interested in with street photography is people in the process of doing their job. So people working, people, especially like construction workers. I think something about construction workers, people doing carpentry. I don't know why I'm so interested in that. It's really interesting to see people doing that kind of work. I think there's the light, the uniforms they wear, and it kind of the buildings, the architecture, the metallic elements just reflects the light really nicely. Yeah, it's so changing city is great for street photography because you walk down one route and then suddenly it's becoming a new building. It's not just a new building; it's the process of building that new building, which is interesting, I think.
Because it changes every week you go there.
It changes every day. I mean, Japanese builders, they're super fast,
they're
right?
very efficient.
Super efficient, right? So, and it's great. Not even just building, sitting there having a cigarette break, or having a coffee, or whatever they do, or eating cup ramen or something. That for me is just, I really like this element of life just going on and people working hard and trying to do what they earn a buck or trying to live. So. Yeah.
Has living here and kind of practicing photography changed a little bit your kind of artistic approach to it? You said at the beginning when we talked that you grew up doing a lot of sports and you were not interested in art and didn't really see the point in it. And now you have had a period where you really you shortened your lunch breaks to go out and take photos. You woke up early to go out and take photos. And you moved from taking photos of silhouettes, of fishermen and the fish you caught, to rediscovering the city you live day in, day out, and focusing on the street. How has that kind of affected your kind of creative process or your vision or your perspective of the medium of photography?
I'm still just a sportsman. I think I just like going around hunting. It's kind of it's interesting because the kind of photography I enjoy is sports photography, dancers and performers, and then street photography. And it's the fact that it's kind of quick and I would say for me it's just that idea of maybe 200 years ago, 100 years ago, I would have been out with a rifle going to hunt bears or something. It's just something I really like about going to try and capture something. And I think one thing, getting into, as I say, I grew up playing cricket and being around people who like football in the UK, and I did sports when I first moved to Japan and stuff, and I never really mixed with artists before, and then doing photography opened up the world of artists. And I still don't feel like an artist. I think these people.
Why not?
I think artists are quite special. I think they start with a blank canvas and they create something from within themselves. I think this is quite a special skill. It's not something that I'm particularly. I've made flyers and I've made posters and I've had projects, but it's not I don't really have anything to say. I don't feel like I need to say anything. I think artists a lot of the time have a message or something they need to work through themselves, and they produce pottery or they produce sculpture or music. Or I'm not like this. I'm just walking around with a camera, capturing things. I'm like a journalist, like hunting things. I don't feel like an artist. I might have a bit of an artistic eye, and I have a sense of colour maybe, but I have a lot of respect for artists. I think with the skills they have to be able to start with something from nothing and produce something is quite a talent. I'm just taking photos. The artistry's already been done. I'm just capturing it, So
what drives you now to keep taking photos? You mentioned off camera that now you're also kind of working a little bit part-time. Your main job is still, your main passion is teaching.
I'm still teaching.
But part-time you do a little bit of photography work.
Yeah, I do. I do some, sometimes some sports photography or some weddings or some, corporate work or, it's money, right? It's good to to have a hobby and then to have done it and be kind of committed to it for 7 or 8 years, quite intensely. And then to be able to earn extra money, that's great, right? It's useful. And as I say, I'm a teacher, right? So, I work at elementary schools, I work in a special needs school, and there's lots of events at school that need photos captured. It's great that I can,
So you do your kind of semi-professional photography for the schools you're working at?
No, I don't. I'm at the school, and then if I have my camera with me, I don't. It's not work. I'm there as a teacher, but I have a camera, right? And so
that's good for them to have memories.
I know the students really well, and it's great. So that for me is probably at the moment what I enjoy most about photography is people that I know. I'll get people say, "Can you come and shoot my gig?" and or I shot. I took some photos of my sister's wedding last year in the UK. And for me, at the moment, this is what I enjoy. Is being kind of people say, "Can you come and do this?" And I'll come and do some photography for you. I enjoy that. I enjoyed. I haven't done street photography for quite a while actually, for a couple of months, maybe 3 or 4 months. And I thought, I got this interview today, right? I better do some street photography. So from the station to here, I took about 20 shots. I got some nice shots.
Do you use a rather compact camera? You have it here with you.
Yeah.
Very convenient.
You were talking about gear. You said that first you bought a compact camera and then you bought a real camera, which was a bigger DSLR.
Yeah.
What is this here?
Yeah, I'm it's funny because I'm really interested in cameras as well. I think maybe from being a science background, I'm really interested in all different types of cameras, and I'll sometimes buy a camera secondhand, use it for 3 days, and then sell it and buy a different one. I mean, I'm just really interested in how different camera companies have gone about to build cameras to make it easy to use for some people and maybe not for others, right? With regards to street photography, I think there's different approaches. I mean, there's sometimes I use a telephoto lens and I'm just way back using maybe a 200mm sometimes and standing on a bridge and there'll be someone down there. That's a kind of street photography. But for me, the easiest way to shoot street photography is with a 28mm lens, maybe a little bit wider, 21mm, 35 at a push, 50mm. I feel that I'm
too zoomed in.
Yeah, no,
too close.
I feel like I'm too far away. What I mean by that, the 50mm field of view, I have to be around about. I'm going to come off camera. I need to be around about here, right? And so I'm gonna get captured, right? I get noticed easily at 50mm, or it's easier to get caught. Sounds really sneaky, right? But 28mm, I can step in, and so I step into about here, and maybe I'm looking over here, but I'm actually shooting this guy here.
So you're shooting kind of off the hip. You're not necessarily framing your shot.
Nah, but that's not true because maybe initially yes, but I know the positions on my body. So if I shoot here and I'm in this kind of position, I'm framing the shot because I know the 28mm and I know the camera. So, or I see someone here and I frame like on my knee, shooting upwards. I know how it's going to come about. So shooting at the hip, yes, but once you get to know the camera, you can, it's just shooting without the viewfinder, but knowing where to put the camera and knowing what the settings are. So. Yeah, I mean, any camera's fine. Like it's just light, right? And so smartphone, anything will do.
Smartphone, Andrew, any comments?
Smartphone is good. It's the best camera that you have always.
We have this on camera,
right?
Now.
So
it's recorded. It's recorded. So do you feel like
not the best lens though?
Not the best lens, maybe so.
Right.
Arguably so. You have kind of had a big journey. You said now you've gotten a little bit out of it, but in the end, like everything, right? It's perhaps a passion. It comes and goes. In one topic that we haven't really talked about here is in Japan. A lot of people may think about moving here or that are already here are always or often concerned with language barrier. When you talked at the beginning about your approach to photography, you like to step in but be out of whatever scene, so you don't necessarily have a direct interaction. But do you feel like speaking or not speaking Japanese has been an advantage, a challenge for your photography journey here in Japan?
I mean, I maybe spoke to people maybe 2, 3, 4 times when I do photography. So I've been here 18, 19 years, so I have some grasp of Japanese. So it's never really come into the equation because of the, some street photographers will go up and introduce themselves and I want to take a photograph and they may speak, I've seen it on Instagram and whatnot, and it's nice, and they make a relationship with the person. And I think that's a really nice thing to do. It's not something that really interests me. It's something I could do, something that maybe I should do, maybe. As it doesn't interest me, maybe I could find something from it. And I think, I don't think it's a language thing. I think it's more about the way you conduct yourself and your attitude. And I think if you're confident you're a photographer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, being a street photographer has an importance. I think, as we've seen recently, the world is kind of changing, and I think, the world is always changing. There's been periods of time where I think street photographs of protests, of social conditions, when we look at them now, 50, 30, 30, 40
Iconic
years ago,
photos.
Iconic photos, or they just capture the time in different ways. We have lots of video these days, right? So maybe it's going to be different, but no, I don't think it's going to be different, because you have to sit down and watch a video. You can just glance and see a photo on a billboard or something, or in a book, or
Is that something you're interested in, kind of partake into the social change and capturing that change in your photos?
Not particularly with any social. I think I hope my photographs will be more interesting, when people look at my photographs in 100 years' time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean anyone
That they show the Japan of the time you were there.
Yes, yeah. I'm not. Yes, I think. Yeah, I've just recorded the period of time and the places that I've been, and that and that's all. But there's no political or anything, social change or anything like that kind of message. I hope that someone in 50, 60, 70 years' time, maybe when I'm not here anymore, someone may look at the photographs and think, oh, that's what Japan was like, back in 2010 or whatever, right? And that's enough for me.
So where do you leave your photographs for people to see?
I mean, for now, it's on social media.
Social media.
But I should start printing and putting stuff.
Oh, so you moved to printing?
Maybe, right? I mean, you don't know about the internet, right? I mean, I don't know. I think you take it for granted. Everything's going to be online, right?
Yeah, or social media is a private company. We take it for granted that it's always going to be there.
Right. I mean, there's photographs on Facebook that I go back and try and retrieve, and they're there. I can see them, but I can't download them anymore. And I have no backups of it. This is 10 years ago, so I have to take screenshots. That kind of sucks.
Low
right?
resolution.
Low resolution, right? But for instance, for a smartphone, there's no problem, right? But yeah, I wouldn't mind making a book. I have exhibitions now and again, and it's interesting. I watched, Vivian Maier, right, the documentary, and I think I watched it with my mother, with my mum back in Spain when I was back there. And I've heard a lot of people say this. It's so sad that she didn't have her photos published and she didn't become famous when she was
alive.
Yeah, I disagree. I didn't really get that. I think she just enjoyed taking photographs,
Mm-hmm.
and I think she got the satisfaction point out of that. And for me, it's the same. I'm not really concerned about what happens to my photographs. I've already been out taking them, and that's it.
So the experience for you is the moment, the process of making them.
Yeah, the process very much so.
Do you do a lot of post-editing after? Not much?
No, the less the better.
Mm.
The more I find I'm doing, probably the worse the shot is. I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy editing. I enjoy.
You mentioned the documentary just now about Vivian Maier. Do you have any photographs or photographers that you kind of take inspiration from for your kind of personal journey and growth and technical development in photography?
No, I don't. Not for influence. I mean, I just shoot what I like, right?
Mm-hmm.
People I like. I mean, I like William Klein. I think he's a great photographer. Vivian Maier. And the person who I probably like the best, not so much for his photography, but for his interviews, is Gary Winograd.
Oh, yes.
I really like. I like the way he speaks. I like his. I mean, he says the kind of same thing. He walks around the streets, just takes photographs, almost like an impulse. That's like breathing. It's just something that you do. He doesn't necessarily consider himself an artist. I like this. He's just a photographer, and he's not trying to do anything, to say anything. He's just taking photographs, and that's all it is. It's just photographs. It's not like. It's just a photograph, and these photographs can have really, for some people, have really special meaning and can change or whatever. But for me, it's just a photograph, right? I think there's more. I'm not a doctor. I'm not saving. I'm just taking photographs.
I'm just taking photographs. I think that's a great quote to keep. I'm
Just taking photographs,
on your
right?
on your legacy. I'm just
Yeah.
taking photographs.
Yeah, until I don't, and then you know. So
Thank you for sharing, Noel.
mm,
This was very interesting, and I think I was really interested into your journey because it's changed, and you're kind of still taking it as it goes and growing in the medium. Do you feel that maybe there's an aspect of your photography that you would have liked to talk about that I didn't ask you? Any questions?
no, I mean, no, I think I didn't really. No, I think
Just taking photographs.
I'm just taking
photographs. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think,
I like that.
yeah, I think I've reached a level, and I see really top grade photographers, and they're up here, right? And I think it's these to really reach the next level. I think you need to become more of an artist, and I think it doesn't mean creating something from nothing, but it means creating artistic themes and projects and shooting around that instead of just wandering around the street, right? And I think that's something I haven't really been careful with. And I think in the future, I need to sit down and think, okay, I'm going to set myself a project. It might be 6 a.m. or it might be 1/10 of a second, or it might be whatever, right? Something I don't do, right? And it's something that maybe would benefit me as a photographer.
When you have that project, make sure to share it with us because we'd love to see them.
Yeah.
And until then, we can follow you on your Instagram and see all your photos.
Yeah, it's going pretty slow. So,
yeah.
But
They're there to be seen, and they'll
Yeah.
remain there for as long as Instagram will allow them to be seen.
yeah, and, So please do. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for your time. We still have a few more questions from Andrew's trivia session.
Trivia, okay.
Yeah, I hope you're ready for some deep knowledge of photography in Japan.
Okay, in Japan.
Trivia,
Wow.
not so deep, but
Not so deep.
Okay, I need to write the answers down.
so yes, we will try to compete.
Okay.
And the answer to the question is a number, be it like amount of money or a
Okay.
year or some kind of percentage. So
Okay.
the closer you get on the number
Yep.
to the correct answer, or which I have written here.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's exactly correct. Hopefully it is. The better it is, and you
The
win
closer you get,
nothing.
you
Okay.
win nothing. Just for the...
Just for the competition,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay, so there are 3 questions. The first question is, when was the first portable camera invented? Film camera.
So
Portable.
moving away from those giant things that were on tripods. That
Yeah,
they-
that
would
you
have to
can-
go into the dark chamber on the scene. And
Yeah, something that you can carry. I can give you a few hints. It was Kodak.
Kodak Brownie, right?
of course, Kodak. Then I will say
Brownie, Kodak. It's I'll probably say, okay, we're gonna hang on,
What
let's cover this up.
year?
My pen doesn't work.
And then I have
chef
some other. After we do this, I have some interesting facts about it too.
Okay, the brown. Okay, it's nothing too much. There we go.
Okay, so traditionally the expert goes first. What's your guess?
I said 1920.
1920.
Yeah.
I have 1872.
Oh,
1872.
precise, right?
Okay, it is 1888.
Hey,
There we go.
Closer.
the reason I know is that I'm currently reading a book that was written in 1936, and
Okay.
they make a lot of references to the kind of rise and fall of, at that time already, Kodak.
Right.
From a like business perspective, and so I was like, if that book is in the 30s, probably it's been quite a few years earlier that they. Okay, 1888.
Right.
Yeah, the first camera had 100 exposures, so it was a film of
Okay.
100 exposures, which is a lot, I think.
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, and it cost $25.
25.
Which
At
at
that
that
time.
time would be what, quite a few hundred, few thousand,
It's
maybe.
$800 now, approximately.
Okay.
That's pretty expensive for just 100 shots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
All right,
Yeah.
on to question number 2.
Yes. How many photos estimated are taken every minute worldwide?
Like on all devices.
All devices, everything. It's estimated. It's also cameras, cell phones, iPhones, Android phones. How many photos are taken every minute? Every minute.
Every minute.
So it's 60 seconds worldwide, approximately. Average.
Okay.
Here's a pen.
Okay, I was just throwing numbers out of thin air. Okay, so world population
Oh yeah, thank you. That may help.
every minute, right?
Mm.
Oh, let's go with that.
Okay, good. What's your
5 billion.
5 billion?
I have 4 billion.
Oh,
4 billion. Every minute worldwide, there are 3.3 million photos
I'm
taken.
disappointed.
This is-
Every day, it's 4.7 billion, which is closer if
okay.
you took every
yeah, but
day.
It's still
Million. I would have expected a lot more.
a minute, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm just over imagining just people walking around on the phone just taking photos
Taking
non-stop.
selfies.
But actually, we've been here for an hour, haven't taken a single photo.
That's true.
Well,
Yeah.
we have 3 cameras recording.
That
That's
every second there are 24 photos
Yeah,
taken.
There we go.
That's true.
Millions.
Yeah,
of
but
photos.
it's 4.7 billion every day. So, and the population of Earth is like 8 billion.
about to reach
something.
8. Not yet. Or did it officially cross or was it expired? I don't remember
Sure,
what Daniel
yeah.
said. But anyway, around 8. 8 billion.
Okay, the last question. What is the size in pixels of the largest photograph? Or it's a collage of several photographs published ever online. Or yeah, it is online. It's a photo of Kuala Lumpur
What?
panorama.
Oh.
It's a photograph taken with a camera.
So it's a regular camera. It's not like one of these giant cameras from NASA
Space.
to take photos of space.
Yeah, no.
I
It's
see.
regular or relatively regular camera. It's a stitched collage
Stitched.
of many photos put into one and published online. So how many pixels are there?
I have no idea. I have 0 idea.
Mega or giga pixels?
Okay.
I would
Okay.
say. Okay.
No?
120 million.
120 million
Yeah.
pixel? That would be
120 million megapixels. So you'd say a camera.
120 million.
This is
megapixels.
8 million megapixels, right? This is 20.
That's probably megapixel is million pixels.
Right? So this is 8 point. Hang on.
8 million pixels,
8
right?
million pixels, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to go 120, maybe a bit more. 120 million
120 million pixels.
megapixels.
No,
This is 8 million megapixels, right?
Yes, that's 8 million pixels.
Right?
8
And
million pixels,
so
not
the latest
megapixels.
camera would be about 36, 14 million megapixels, right? Am I getting that right? So
There's one M too much.
40,
40.
for example, right?
Mm.
So like a Nikon D700 is 12 million megapixels, right?
So
It's not 12 million megapixels,
12
it's
million
12
pixels.
million pixels,
It's 12
which
million
is
pixels. Ah, okay. Right. Okay.
which is 12 megapixels. So megapixel is 1 million pixels.
Okay. So I'm okay.
So 1 megapixel is 1 million pixels.
1 million pixels. So this is 8 million pixels.
Pixels.
Okay.
and you
8
have
million, 120 million. 120 million pixels.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's 120 megapixel.
Yes, 120 mega.
photograph.
Probably more than that, actually. Right?
1,000 megapixels.
1000 megapixels would
Yeah.
be 1 gigapixel.
Something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so it was 846 gigapixels,
Wow.
which would be
Very far away.
846 billion pixels.
Billion. Wow.
Very far away. That's a lot of
Wow.
Yeah.
pixels.
Yeah,
A
too
lot of
many.
pixels.
But I actually saw that photo, and you can see the panorama of the city, and then zoom in into smaller details. Like you can see people and cars all around the city.
Read newspaper print, probably, right?
Yeah,
yeah, maybe even people, someone on the balcony drinking coffee, and then like
some
You read
person
the-
taking
read the
photo of
text.
you
So the nasal hairs,
randomly.
right? That
that's quite a lot
resolution.
of
Wow.
work. Thank you for the
Yeah.
cool questions and new
Thank
knowledge. Thank you, Noel, again
No,
for
no
coming
problems at
today.
all. It's been
This
a
was a
pleasure.
great discussion. This was Fish and Rice Stories from Japan, where we talked about street photography. Thank you very much for listening or watching, and we'll see you next week in a new episode. Bye.
Bye.